back to the Neil Haley Show here on the Total Celebrity segment. And I am excited about my guest today for both TV and radio, Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary from CNBC's. And I'm really excited about talking about Money Court and also Shark Tank. Kevin, thanks for stopping by. How are you?
Great. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So I want to get started. And this is kind of a question I'm sure you've asked always. Did you always want to become an entrepreneur? Was that something growing up you always wanted to do?
I've asked entrepreneurs that question as I've met them through my career. It always is some definitive moment that puts you on that path. About a third of the population becomes entrepreneurs. But for me, it was the humiliation of learning what it's like to work for somebody in an ice cream store and get fired because I wouldn't scrape gum off the floor. And that was just something that didn't sit well with me. And I have to thank that woman. She owned that ice cream store. I was in, high school at the time, working there because I was interested in the girl working in the shoe store beside it. And it was just one of those moments of humiliation. I realized there's two kinds of people in the world. Those that, own the store and those that scrape the gum off the floor. And you have to kind of decide what you want to be and do. And I'm not dissing anybody that wants to have a career,
right,
in a corporate ladder, but it's just, I can't do it. And I never worked for anybody again.
What was next for you when you said, I'm not going to work for anybody,
I wanted to be a guitarist and a photographer. And my stepfather said, you'll starve to death. You're not good enough. I went to college and I took psychology and environmental studies. And he said, you're still going to starve to death. Then I went and did a business degree. And I really wanted to be involved in the film business. I had this artistic desire. But so what I did when I got out of business school is I started a film production company that produced content for the original 6 hockey teams in Detroit and Boston and Philadelphia. And that was quite successful. And that was my first journey into entrepreneurship. We sold the company. We had a format called Don Cherry's Grapevine. We did another format called the Original 6, and that was the sale of my first company, and I was off to the races. But I'd always wanted to go back to be, trying my luck in bands. And, but, I've been fortunate on the financial route. And today I have a massive guitar collection. I've got really great cameras. And I tease my dad saying, I'm come back to haunt you because I can afford to do this now. And I'm still editing. I actually grew up as a film editor on an 8-plate Steenbeck. And a cameraman. And so and every weekend I still cut on, digitally now, Premiere Pro, keep my chops going. My daughter's a producer in New York, so I think she's got a few genes off the old man from the TV side. But I've always thought that yin and yang in business is great. It helps you solve problems, arts and the chaos of it and the discipline of business.
I would never have thought that. I mean, might have heard a little bit about it on Shark Tank. I'm a huge fan of Shark Tank. I would never have thought that you were in the entertainment business, because the entertainment business helps you really in so many ways, being a performer, as you did guitars, to performing in front of people, to being behind the scenes. You really understand how to tell a story. And that's an important part of everything in building something, is that brand story.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm fortunate. I've been able to work with the world's best showrunners, best television producers, Mark Burnett, Eric Schatz, that's doing Money Court, and his team. But I drive them crazy because I'm an editor. And when I see a first cut of a show, I'm all over them. I'm just on the timing. If there's a jump cut or something, it's a nightmare for them.
I'm sure, because that was the business you were in.
Yeah, and I'm still in it. I'm just on the other side of the camera. But
exactly.
I do a lot of work on the technical side, and anyways. But in Money Court, getting back to that, that really sprung from my interest. I have a portfolio now of 34 plus companies, and in America, we've got 65% of our jobs are created by small businesses, and a lot of those were started by families. And so what you find out, Money Court's not like the other judge shows where there's a cat screaming in the neighborhood and people are upset and they go into small claims court. These are real litigations. This is real money. These are real people suing each other. And the reason they're on Money Court is they know we've got a log jam in our courts because of the pandemic, and they need arbitration. They want to settle it and they want to move on. And as one litigant said to me, I don't really like you, Mr. Wonderful, but I trust you. And I'd rather be trusted than liked or win a popularity contest. That's an interesting dichotomy.
And so a lot of these cases that come, I love the idea of money court because the fact is, you're right. During the pandemic, it's harder to get court cases, different things, and people owe a certain amount of money. Is it mostly involving business a lot of times in some of the people that come in with the money disputes?
A lot of it's business, but it all involves money. What tears people apart, and this is why it's such compelling television. These cases, you're going to see yourself, you're going to see your family, you're going to see your cousin, your uncle, your brother. You've seen this happen to you, and now you're seeing it happen to somebody else. And it's how it gets resolved that matters. But some of this is really hard to I mean, it's emotional. It's brutal to see a mother sue her daughter, for example. And just, you can, as you peel that onion around the case, yeah, you've got the docket, you know what the claim is for, and you know the litigation, and they've signed for arbitration, but why is a mother suing her daughter? And how did that happen to that family? And when you go down that rabbit hole, that's when you start making some remarkable television. I mean, it's really, I'll tell you something about this show that you might find interesting, because I've been doing TV a long time.
Yes.
And the people that, when you go to a studio like Telemundo and NBC Universal in Miami, where we shot this, that's state of the art. I mean, it's the most incredible facility I've ever seen. And maybe we had 100 people on the set, the sound people, the lighting people, the gaffers, the cameraman, you know, the makeup people, the caterers, they're all there.
Yeah.
And these people are pros. They don't watch TV, they make TV. Right. And so they're jaundiced. They've done this before.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember one of these cases. I looked over to the right where the soundboard was, and in every room, there's a line feed of what the truck is cutting off all the cameras.
Right.
And there was the entire technical staff glued to the monitor, watching this incredible story of this family ripping itself to pieces. And when the break hit, the woman who did my makeup came over to me and said, I don't agree with you at all. I don't agree with what you're doing here. I think you didn't give the daughter enough money. And she was totally engaged. That's when I knew we had a hit. Because when the staff are watching TV, when they're supposed to be making TV, you got a hit. Right. That's what I think.
And that's in telling a story. And so the mindset of the story, what is that ultimate goal of Money Court? What do you want to show the viewers that really can understand?
I want to settle. I want to, you know, I have a federal judge in Adiposo who's seen from the bench, a real federal judge and a real trial attorney in Katie Fang. And they give me all the legal attributes of the contracts involved, what the law says, but ultimately the decision is mine. And I always try and resolve for the business, because if you think about a business, a family business, like the case you're going to see tonight, which is a crazy case. This is, most people think, oh, you're going to court because your business is failing and you're suing. Right. How about a case where you're so successful, you're making so much money that the partners sue each other because they don't agree on the direction of making even more money? I've never seen anything crazier than that. And I sat there listening to this saying, this is insane. You guys have an incredible business. You're making a fortune on free cash flow and you're suing each other?
Exactly.
And they were. And it was, as you will see tonight, it's an amazing outcome. And I think people are really going to get engaged in watching these cases get arbitrated.
What have you learned about the law being part of this?
The law is interpreted by lawyers and by judges and by people. And it doesn't always resolve itself to optimize for an economic outcome. And so I think what's great about Money Court is I know money and I know business and I know people. And, you know, I try and solve for, yes, I'll listen to the law, but ultimately, if it's not going to save the business, I will. I'll make the decision that's right to save the business, because the business has more than just the owners. It's got the customers, it's got the employees, it's got the legacy of the value they've created around their brand. Why would I want to see that destroyed? And I think that's what's unique about Money Court. Yes, it's a legal platform, but ultimately it's my decision. So these decisions weigh heavily on me, and I want to make sure I get it right, particularly when a family's ripping itself to pieces.
I have to ask you a question about Mr. Wonderful. I'm a legitimate 6'10", former professional wrestler. So I'd gone in the entrepreneur route, but I was a pro wrestler, college basketball player. I'm an intimidated guy at times, right? How did you get the name Mr. Wonderful, and how much is it really Kevin O'Leary, and how much is it a little bit of a gimmick?
I'll tell you where this stems from. When I was 14 years old, my mother said something to me that I never listened to then, but later in life, it became very, very relevant. That's what happens in life a lot. If you park it in your brain, sometimes it becomes useful, sometimes not. She said to me, Kevin, if you always tell the truth, you'll never have to remember what you said. And I said, what does that mean? She said, think about it. You're going to be thinking one day to lie to somebody, and you don't have to. You can just tell them the truth. But the thing about the truth is not everybody wants to hear it.
No,
and so my role on Shark Tank is I'm the shark that tells you the truth, even if it's not what you want to hear, because the real world is going to come and bite your hidey anyways. And I think in the early demo days when we were shooting the pilot, 14 years ago, 13 years ago, Barbara, who, we just don't agree on some stuff. She said facetiously to me, your offer is a joke. You're trying to get control from these people at 51%. It's the first time they've met you. Aren't you just Mr. Wonderful? And we think that's when it started. And I thought, yes, I am Mr. Wonderful, Barbara, because I tell the truth and you don't. And so we got into it back then, and we've stayed that way all these years. And obviously, I have a relationship with her that's very healthy. We're good friends. She's a great cook. I can cook too. We often meet up in New York and prepare a big meal. I love that. And the only reason she gets anywhere and makes it to Shark Tank on time is I buy her a new broom every year.
See, what I think that helps you is being in the entertainment industry before being on Shark Tank. Some of them were, some of them weren't, and you really bring bring a different side, especially when you see someone pitch something and then bam, you hit them with the truth, which is important.
Yeah, and I think it's unfair to call me the mean shark. I just tell the truth. And I mean, if you can't handle it, don't worry, it's going to catch up with you anyways.
I don't think you are.
That really is important for Money Court. And what we found in the casting to get these cases to actually sign these contracts is many people in America don't actually like me that much, but they trust me. And I'd rather be trusted to win a popularity contest. That was a great honor for me to hear that from people saying, look, we don't have to be friends, but I'll listen to what you do in terms of adjudicating my case or, going through arbitration with you. And when we did the post-analysis, in other words, interviewed the exit people after they settled, after they heard my verdict, 90% of them were happy with the outcome. So I'm taking a lot of pride in that. And I think this show will have a lot of legs because there's countless cases in America right now. Countless. And I think we're going to get a lot of them on Money Court.
I have one industry question, another industry, and it's really becoming a big, big industry right now. And I want to get your take. And that's the space race with the space industry. It's becoming huge on Clubhouse. It's becoming, everyone wants to get to space. What are your thoughts in the space race?
I've had the opportunity to actually go and see Branson's facility. I've had a chance to work with him on social media and see his actual capsule that he flew in. I wouldn't do it, but he's an adventurous soul, and I get it. I think this is going to be a good business. I really do. Not just from the human perspective of the interest of seeing space. Everybody wants to see it and feel weightlessness. It's just human interest in being explorers. And I think they will commercialize that. But I'm more interested in being able to fly to London in an hour, because I spend a lot of my time in Dubai or Saudi Arabia or the Middle East or in Switzerland. And I have to fly there 6 and 7 hours. And some of this technology that's being advanced is for that suborbital travel that I can go from New York to London in 1 hour and 5 minutes. Imagine I can go there, do a meeting and fly back for dinner. That's, we had that way back on this, in 2.5 hours with, in the very first supersonic planes that were commercial, but I flew those and they were terrible. They were tiny little things with really noisy, but still you got there quickly. But I think this technology is going to spawn all kinds of industries and be good for investors.
And then at one point you'll have businesses in space. That's coming, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's so much opportunity. And all this technology that's advancing so quickly, even what we're using right now to talk to each other, has changed business forever. And it's changed the profile of what I do. And you see it in the Money Court, all of the technology that we used to make the show during the middle of COVID, but also all the people that brought their businesses and their litigation. There was so much tech involved. People have just embraced this, and it becomes part of the economy and part of the way people run businesses.
Kevin, you're definitely a great interview, man. Just so humble in so many ways, and I would never have thought that from the show. So I appreciate the time, and I have a different opinion, even though I love when you tell people straight. But hey, you got to do that, especially when you are the expert when it comes to as an entrepreneur. So thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And tonight's case is going to make some people absolutely go nuts. That's what you ain't seen nothing like this. Enjoy the show.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. You're listening and watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment. We're back to The Neil Haley Show here on the Caregiver Dave Celebrity segment. I'm excited to welcome the program Caregiver Dave and DeSanti. Dave, how are you? What's going on? And I'm excited about our guest because, again, I grew up watching this Candid Camera when I was a kid. And I remember I was very young watching, and our guest was very young when he first was on Candid Camera.
Candid Camera was huge. I was watching it from 6 years old up through my teen years and after that. And you know you're big when Bill Cosby in his comedy routine says, "Am I on Candid Camera?" Everybody knew what Candid Camera was. So we have with us today Peter Funt. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Yeah, I've got you guys beat. I've been watching Candid Camera since I was maybe 1 year old. So yeah, it's definitely been a part of my life, my family's life. And thank goodness it just keeps on going. You know, next year will be the 75th anniversary of this great idea that my dad had back on radio in 1947.
And tell me about the party and the celebration. What are we going to do?
Well, it's a book party. So I'm happy to have written my book, and I'll be celebrating all the way into next year.
Well, I'm very disappointed it's not a television special. I think that would work very well.
You know, we hold so many records, my dad and I, in television. For example, here's a good one. We are the only entertainment show in television history to have produced new episodes in 8 different decades. Now, wow, that's a remarkable accomplishment. There's one news show that qualifies that way, and that's NBC's Meet the Press. But with Meet the Press, Candid Camera, the only 2 shows produced in 8 different decades. So that's a record for sure. But to answer your question about anniversaries, I don't know who keeps track of this, but we probably also hold a record for anniversary shows, because my dad did a 25th anniversary show on ABC, a 35th anniversary show on NBC. He and I did a 40th anniversary special on CBS. And then I did a 50th special on CBS that sort of launched me into a weekly series that I'm so grateful for. So, of course, why not do a 75th anniversary special?
I don't know how old you are, Peter, but you look amazing for however age you are.
Oh, well, you think I look good for 92, huh?
So let's go, Peter. I want to jump into this, specifically the history of Candid Camera in a way, before we get to the history of your life. And you talked about it started out in radio. I never knew that. So how was your dad able to come up with the visuals of Candid Camera on radio?
Well, he didn't even think in television terms. You know, it came about by accident. In the mid-40s, my dad was in the military, and at an Army base in Oklahoma, his job was to record messages that the soldiers could send home to their loved ones. The messages were recorded on some kind of acetate disc, and the discs were rather expensive back then. So my dad had the guys rehearse their little statement, and when they had it down pat, the red light would go on to indicate recording, and they would do it. Well, what happened was, one soldier after another did a great rehearsal, but then became nervous and tongue-tied during the real take. My dad's solution to this problem was to secretly disconnect the red light and secretly record the rehearsals. And after he did that in the military for a while, he realized, hey, maybe there is something to this idea of hidden audio. So when he got home, he pitched it to Mutual Radio first, and they didn't buy it, but then ABC Radio did. And so in 1947, the show called Candid Microphone went on the air on ABC as a weekly radio series. And it was just conversation. There were no pictures, but that came quickly. The very next year, 1948, it went to television and was the very first program ever televised on what became the ABC television network. And then that was Candid Camera.
And a lot of people have tried to copy it and, had limited success, but there's only one Candid Camera.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say if imitation is indeed the sincerest form of flattery, my dad and I were just flattered beyond our wildest imagination. But that's a funny thing too. For the first 4 decades of my dad's experience with Candid Camera, there wasn't a single imitator. 40 years of television and not a single derivative show, no one doing hidden camera that I know of.
Right.
And even that created a problem. You'd say, well, that's great. We don't have any competition, but the Emmys didn't have a category for it, so we couldn't win an award. And the critics didn't quite know how to pigeonhole it or relate to it. So sometimes their opinions were mixed or at least confused. But then when someone else started fiddling with hidden camera, it was sort of a dike that we couldn't keep our finger in anymore. And it did indeed pour out. For a while, my father tried suing some of these imitators. And that didn't work out too well because you can't really protect this sort of idea. Obviously, the name Candid Camera is fully protected, but the notion of hiding a camera is not protectable, nor should it be. I'm happy. I'm happy that so many people have tried. And I'm also happy that most all of them have, in my opinion, somehow failed. It's not that complicated, but they don't really manage to capture the essence of what my dad invented and what I have tried to do in my career. And I can sum it up. It's to celebrate humanity. We don't come at Candid Camera with the notion that people are stupid or that we can make them look that way. We think people are great sports. We think when we tell them, smile, you're on Candid Camera, it is in most cases one of the happiest moments of their entire life. So we're positive. And if that makes us different from our imitators, then the heck with them.
Yeah, I remember one particular episode. I'm sorry, Neil, I got to take over here. But, I've been in the gas station business for years. My family's been in it. And you did a skit one time where people would come into the gas station and you had the camera hidden and they would ask for the restroom key. And you would give them the key attached to like a tire. Yeah, I'm sorry, but people steal the key, but they can't steal this one. You remember doing that?
I sure do. It's one of my personal favorites, and I was there that day that we shot that. It's so beautiful because you see, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Dave, because that is the essence of a perfect Candid Camera idea. It's not a big deal. It's not, dropping a piano out of a 10th floor window or something.
Right.
It's a simple little idea, but that almost 100% of us can relate to very easily. It's very much like when Jerry Seinfeld says, you know, is non-fat yogurt really fat-free? It's in the zeitgeist. It's the stuff we think about and experience. So that experience at the gas station with they put the key on big things like a wrench or something like that. We just magnified it for comedic effect.
Right.
But Dave, if you're a fan of gas station humor, our library is loaded with gas
Oh,
station
really? I
stuff.
must have missed it.
My
When could I see
dad-
that stuff?
My dad did the 18-foot dipstick. So the attendant is trying to check the oil, and the dipstick is 18 feet long. I sent Kate McNamara of our staff into a gas station once and asked her to ask the guy, would you take out 5 gallons? That's it. Just, can you remove 5 gallons? That's a big problem for a guy who takes his gas station work seriously.
Absolutely.
I sent Melissa into another gas station and she asked the guy, would you change the air in my tires? I'm convinced it's become very dirty over time. Many gas station gags. Don't get me started.
I love it. Okay, so
That's
let's talk
awesome.
about the jingle, Smile, You're on Candid Camera, which I'm not going to sing. Dave's more of a singer, I think, than me. But how did that jingle come about?
It came about out of a very serious need in about 1963. The show had already been around for 15 years, and it did not have the slogan, Smile, You're on Candid Camera yet, and it did not have that song. It had an instrumental song, not memorable. But in that year, 63, my father was facing a very serious problem. He was a top 10 rated show on network television, but the critics would not get off his back. Too many people wrote that Candid Camera is cruel or treats people unfairly. That was the predominant view at that time. So he and his staff set about trying to create a marketing tool that would fix this problem. And some smart person in the room said, well, when you take a picture, a still picture, you tend to say, smile. Why don't we say smile in connection with Candid Camera? And from that came the slogan, Smile, You're on Candid Camera, which, by the way, let me interrupt myself. As I mentioned in my book, we got an award from a national plumbing supply company because they had figured out that Smile, You're on Candid Camera is the most popular graffiti above restroom urinals. Smile, You're on Candid Camera.
Yes, I've seen that.
But then to extend the idea from the slogan, they got some talented guys to write a song to go with it. That became the new theme song that has lasted with us till this day. And that in turn led to more of what my dad and I called reveals, those happy moments when we said, Smile, You're on Candid Camera, and people realized it was a joke and they were on TV. But it all worked together, the slogan and the term and the reveal. And boy, I'm so happy that accident took place.
I got to ask you, were there some people who were not happy, that were mad?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said that never happened. Of course, it had to when we photographed hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. Usually the people who decline to sign a release, and that's what you're talking about, because they do have to sign a waiver to give us permission to use it on TV. And usually the people who decline are people we photographed who were in the wrong place at the wrong time
I figured.
with the wrong other person.
Oh,
So if
man.
you photograph someone who's out on a date with someone else's wife, you're not going to get a release no matter how funny it is. And that happens once in a while. I once shot a sequence, or tried to, at a restaurant in Darien, Connecticut on a Saturday night. Now, Darien is a so-called bedroom community for New York City guys. And I know now what they mean by bedroom community, because that night in that restaurant, 12 out of 14 couples we photographed wouldn't sign because they were there inappropriately. So I learned a bit of a lesson that night. Yeah, otherwise, Dave, to be honest with you, people are thrilled. You know, do you remember on Family Feud, not the current one, but the original with
Yes.
Richard Dawson?
Yes.
Right.
And do you remember how he, I shouldn't say this, he's sort of like Andrew Cuomo, but he was kissing all of the
Right.
contestants.
Who
And
loved
you
it, by the
remember how
way.
that built over time? At first, it was, if you look back on the original shows, it was mildly awkward. By the end of his run, it was the best thing that could possibly happen. People were thrilled to get a hug and a kiss from Richard Dawson. So that's the same thing that happened with Candid Camera. It was self-fulfilling. The bigger the show got, the more successful it became, the more of a thrill it was to finally be caught. Who would decline to be on? We've had people who declined and then came back to our location an hour later and saying, what was I thinking? My kids are going to kill me. I got a sign.
Wow.
That's it.
So 3 years old is the first time you walked on set. You were on Candid Camera.
Yeah.
So did you write about
My
that?
dad thought that I could be a shoeshine boy at age 3 on the streets of New York City. And there was no great joke except that I was told to charge $10 per shoe. Back at a time when I guess a shine cost 15 cents or something for both shoes. And they just wondered how people would react to such an audacious and young entrepreneur. I'm told it was moderately funny, but I also learned sadly that they didn't bother to keep the footage back then.
Oh,
They never kept the outtakes, but they edited the piece and threw everything else away. Then the show was telecast, and then they threw the show away.
Wow.
They didn't even bother keeping that. So fortunately, a few years later, they started saving stuff, and we have a great library. But back then, no, it's only the memories of my family members that allow me to tell that story. But yeah, that was my first experience. And on and off throughout my youth, I was plugged in to Candid Camera situations. It was often a time when my dad couldn't get one of the professionals to do something because it was either too outlandish, too stupid, or too dangerous. Now, on the cover of my book, and here's the plug, but can you see this? I don't want to glare into the
yeah,
camera.
we can see it.
But that's an actual photograph when I was 15 years old. And what you see there is, this isn't Photoshop or anything. I am hanging from the ceiling in what my dad thought could be an upside down room. And he took everything that should have been on the floor, desk, chair, lamp, everything, and fastened it upside down to the ceiling. But in order to complete this effect, he needed someone young enough, nimble enough, dare I say, stupid enough to hang upside down and talk to people when they came into this room. Now, what we learned right away was you can only do this for 60, 70 seconds or so. And then the blood rushed to my head, and some big guys had to come in and bring me down.
Oh my.
And then I'd walk around till I felt okay and then back up. And we did this all day long. It was like a 8 to 9 hour shoot.
Wow.
And not a blasted funny thing ever happened. We got a good photo out of it, and that made the cover of my book. but the reactions were terrible, and I'll tell you why. Uh, Psychologists, psychiatrists refer to it as cognitive dissonance. People were so stunned by what they were seeing that they just sort of shut down. And instead of being the great reaction that my father anticipated, there was actually no reaction. They just
Wow.
ran out of the room. That was it.
They didn't talk to him and engage. They just ran out of the
Well,
room.
him was me. Him
You,
would
yes,
have been me.
yes, yeah.
And they did a little bit, but you know how Gleason used to say, I'm dating myself, but you know how Jackie Gleason used to say, hamina, 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 hamina.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's what I got that day from people.
So you got to have at least the top 3 fantastic skits that you've ever done that are in the Hall of Fame. What are they?
That's a tough question, not a bad one, but a tough one because there's so many thousands and they're in so many different categories. This kind of apples and oranges. A lot of people used to tell my dad, I'll start with him. They used to say that his 2 most iconic sequences were the talking mailbox shot in 1949.
Oh my.
A mailbox on the street, talk to people. That was it. But remember, back then, you didn't have, well, let me say today, everything talks to us. You know,
Right.
your car talks, your microwave oven talks, your everything talks. Back then, the idea of a talking mailbox was just crazy. Another one that he gets a lot of credit for in a historical view is one that I participated in a small way. It was called The Car Without a Motor. And it was a car that had the engine removed and then was towed to the top of hills. And so Dorothy Collins, who was the performer in that sequence, was able to roll really the car down the hill and into service stations where she asked guys to check under the hood, and there was nothing there. And that too was almost a homina moment, but we got some very good stuff that day. In fact, I recreated that about 6 years ago. We went back to the very same spot in Yonkers, New York, where we had shot it the first time. And this time, my son, Danny, who's also part of the show now, took over my role. And the actress Megan Hilty took Dorothy Collins' role. So those are probably 2 of my dad's favorites. As for me, I think the 2 in my thousands that I've done, one was a thing called the Butomatic, and I discuss this in the book. I built a fake machine that I claimed could do a complete beauty makeover in just a few seconds. And all that had to be done was the woman would be put on a conveyor belt, roll into the machine, and just a few seconds later would roll out the other end, fully made up and hairstyle and everything. So in order to do this, I built this fake machine. And I hired the magician's best friend, identical twins, so that one twin unmade up could go in one end. And then a little while later, her twin sister, fully made up, would roll out the other end. I did this for professionals. They were called one at a time to this showroom where I would be demonstrating this machine. And I had this woman to demonstrate one of our twins, but they didn't realize that. And so the subjects, as we call them, the unsuspecting people, were these professional beauticians. And I think that's important because we didn't just pull this prank on, some average person off the street. These were professionals in the beauty business. And one after another, they said, wow, how much does that cost? And where can we get one of those machines? And can I try it? But as I mentioned in my book, the reveal for one of those beauticians is one of the most poignant moments in Candid Camera history. The first twin comes out fully made up. The professional beautician falls for it. I do the reveal and I signal, and the other twin comes out. So now the beautician sees two twins standing next to each other and me saying, "This is Candid Camera." And she says, "I knew it. I knew it." And I say, "No, you knew nothing." And she turns to one of the twins and says, "Did you know?" Now process that. That underscores, first of all, the reality of our reality show, because this was no setup. She was so confused, so nonplussed, so caught in the moment that she not only believed it, but she wondered if one of our two actresses knew about the joke. So
Wow,
that's one of my best moments, Dave.
that's
Right.
awesome.
So Dave,
We could talk all day.
no, I know, but now we're ready for your final question. Dave has a caregiving question. Then we're
Wait a
gonna-
minute, the question is about my book, right? You want to know all about Self-Amused, I assume.
Yeah, we're gonna ask that. No, that's gonna be the last question where we can get the book, Peter. But Dave has a question about caregiving. That's interesting. Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead,
What's the
Dave.
question, Dave?
I'm sorry, I accidentally hit that. All right, last question. Second to the last question. I'm sorry. I am a caregiver. My wife had a stroke. I know there's a change of topic, and but she's doing good. She still can't talk. She can communicate though, non-verbally. And I've been dealing with this for 25 years, but she's reinvented herself. She's doing good. You know, we have a new normal. And now I go around helping other caregivers because I realize how difficult it is to, you know, survive this thing. 30% of caregivers die just from the stress. I'm sure you're no stranger to caregivers and stress. I know your father is no longer with us. I don't know, you know, if he went through a prolonged illness or whatever, but have you ever had experience with having to care for another person?
My dad suffered a debilitating stroke in 1993, and that forced him into retirement. I was his caregiver, along with some other very helpful people, for the next 6 years to one degree or another. I had to care for him. I also had to care for his business and keep things going. But we were able to use something he coined and put together in the mid 1980s, and that's called laughter therapy. And we have a nonprofit foundation called Laughter Therapy,
Oh, wow.
continues to this day. And we send specially selected Candid Camera material to critically ill people because we found, and smarter people than we have reported, that there's something about that humor rooted in reality that works very well to release endorphins and make you feel better, and maybe even speed healing. You know, I'm no scientist, but we learned about this first in a book written by the late author Norman Cousins, who wrote a famous book called Anatomy of an Illness. And in that book, he described how watching Candid Camera helped in his recovery. And it was that prompted my dad to start the Laughter Therapy Foundation. So Dave, yes, I'm very familiar with what you're going through. And I wish you luck, but I'll also say I'll send you some laughter therapy
awesome.
tapes that
Thank
can't
you.
hurt.
Yeah, laughter is healing to the bones. That's even in the Bible.
Yep.
And I wanted to
That's
say one
awesome.
more thing, Peter, before we let you go. So that when's the anniversary again? So people can.
Well,
be ready?
Candid Camera's 75th anniversary, if you go by the radio debut, would be in about 10 months or so next summer. And I hope we can put together a special for that. I also hope that by then my new partners and we're back on weekly television, because, Candid Camera is a wonderful idea. And besides, it's the thing I do best. So
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be rooting
I
for you.
gotta stay
We're in contact. We're going to be rooting for you, and best of luck, Peter, with all your ventures. And it was such a delightful show, providing great information for fans of Canon Camera, and they need to pick up the book. So I appreciate it, Peter.
Oh, thank you both. Nice to be with you guys.
All
Thank
right,
It
take
was
care.
great.
Thanks, Peter, for your
Thank
time.
you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was the Caregiver Dave Celebrity segment here on the Neil Haley Show. Take care. And welcome to the Dr. Christopher Hall Show. I'm excited to welcome to the program Dr. Christopher Hall. Dr. Christopher Hall, thank you for your service. It's great what you do at the emergency room, your book, all these different things, but we have a very inspiring guest, and not many people have heard from the champ in a while, and this is why we're here to do this interview. A lot of exciting things coming up, but we want to learn more about him as well. Dr. Hall, how are you?
Wow, well, I'm doing great, Neil, and I'm very excited. That we have a champion today on the show. So, very excited.
Absolutely. Introduce our guest as people are seeing from the TV, but for radio purposes, go ahead and introduce our guest.
Wow, well, no problem, no problem. Well, it's my honor to introduce a former Olympic medalist, a world heavyweight champion in boxing of the world, the only boxer to two-time, yes sir, champ, the only boxer to hold the titles in all four major sanctioning bodies in boxing. So wow, I'm just so excited to welcome to the show, champ Riddick Bowe. Welcome to the show, Bowe.
Hey, good to see you. How's everything?
Awesome. We're doing fantastic. And already, Dr. Hall, we've already setting up a pro wrestling match up between Bowe and I, because, and Bowe, I'm a legitimate 6'10" and 300 pounds. So, yeah. How tall are you?
6'5".
6'5". Oh, we're going to have this match.
The battle of the heavyweights, man. The battle of
the heavyweights go after it for sure. All right, Dr. Hall, go with your first question for Bowe.
Wow, well, no problem. Well, so excited to have you on the show today, Bowe. And, just tell us a little bit about kind of like where you're from and how'd you get into boxing?
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. And I got into boxing because the teacher put a tape about Muhammad Ali one day. And I just fell in love with him. He said, come on, sucker. I did a dream. And ever since then, I've been in boxing.
And so did you know that this was something you really wanted to do? So you were a fan of Muhammad's then?
Well, I was a fan of Muhammad. Let me tell you what happened. There was a bully in class, and he said he liked Joe Frazier better. That was okay with me. But then he said Ali was a faggot. And I said, you must be talking about your mama.
Oh, my.
And we got the fight, man. And after the fight was over, the new champ was born. I was the new champ. And so he got expelled from the school, and the teacher asked me if I wanted to go to a gym. I said, absolutely. I've been in boxing ever since.
That's great story so far. Go ahead, Dr. Hall, next question.
Wow, it's just incredible. So tell us this, champ. Bowe, tell us a little about what was it like being in the Olympics and winning a medal?
Well, emulating Muhammad Ali, I guess it was, for me, being a kid, I really didn't realize what all that really meant. But I was just a kid having fun. And to get a silver medal for my country was the greatest thing in the world for me.
Yeah, it feels great, right? It feels like it's something that's so special to represent the United States, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's the greatest country in the world, man. And to be a silver medal or gold medal for my country, and I thought I died and went to heaven.
Wow, it's just exciting, to have a champ during this time. When we're trying to knock out COVID, we've got our champ here. So, Bowe, tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, I think that you had 33 knockouts. And, what was it like? I think you were the only man who knocked Evander Holyfield out. Tell us about that.
I was the first guy to knock him out. Well, me and Evander Holyfield used to be sparring partners. And I learned a lot from him. But I guess after we fought each other, I knew one day I would have to fight him. But I learned a lot from him. He's a great guy. Actually, we're pretty good friends. He's a good guy.
Interesting. Great. And I think that process of knocking people out, let's talk about how you do that, to make sure you prepare that you're like, this is the time to do the knockout. What did you think Bowe was your like when to decide I'm going to knock them out? When did you have that feeling? I know it's going to be a knockout.
Well, walking to the ring, I know what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. Now, it's up to my opponent to figure out what I'm trying to do and to capitalize. If he doesn't do that, he's going to be in big trouble. He gets knocked out fast and early.
And again, you're a giant among men, just like me. At 6'10", you're a legitimate 6'5". Do you think that helped a lot in the ring as a heavyweight to be the height you had in your reach?
Yeah, I think because a lot of guys really couldn't reach me. And if they did reach me, they were in the danger zone where I can hit them with an uppercut or a straight right hand. So I pretty much had the advantage all the way around.
What kind of things, champ? I mean, to be a champion, I mean, you go through so many things to get to the top, and lots of young people listening to the show and watching it. And so, what would be your advice to these young men out here who want to get to the top of what field they're in? I mean, what do you think they should do? What kind of principles should they have, champ?
Well, I guess for the most part, you got to get yourself a good manager and make sure your manager's not a crook. I mean, sometimes you gotta get another manager to watch him. But anyway, I think, if you run, do your push-ups, your sit-ups like you're supposed to, and eat the right things, you should be okay.
Definitely. And, training and discipline and hard work and certainly listening to, your parents, and just like the champ has said, just like Bo has said, how he listened to his mother. So, yeah, that's all very, very important to be successful.
Now, Bo has some big things coming up, I guess, that we're going to continue to talk about. Potentially, if you think I can make my comeback into the wrestling ring, but we have a lot to talk about today with the champ involving that. So for Bo, first of all, I hear that you're acting now. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I wanted to act when I was a little kid, watching Bewitched and one of them other sitcoms. I just fell in love with acting, but I just didn't know how to go about telling people I want to act and things of that nature. And if you take boxing, for instance, I was going into the Marine Corps. I would tell my mother every day, Mom, I'm gonna be a Marine. I told her so much, she would say, boy, shut up, be quiet. But as luck would have it, I got into boxing. I kind of forgot about the Marine Corps because of boxing. But I'm gonna have a lot of fun acting.
Right, and you have some certain projects going on right now. You said what project you're working on in acting right now? Gravesend?
Well,
Yeah.
Gravesend, we did that show. So I think that should be coming out pretty soon.
And you have some other stuff coming out that you can't say yet involving animated and all that stuff. So it's got to feel great, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to tell you something. I didn't know it was so difficult because you got to cut this. It's a lot more stuff that goes with it, not just acting,
Yeah.
It takes 3 hours to do one shot that's 4 or 5 seconds,
You have to pass the time, right? At times, figuring out and talking to guys, seeing different things on set and all those things. And Dr. Hall, just to kind of talk about that, when I would wait for a wrestling match, Dr. Hall, and I was a main event, I'd be waiting sometimes 3 or 4 hours backstage, kind of like what Bo had to do in boxing, but the difference is doing the take over and over and over again, Dr. Hall.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here's something that is big news. Bo is making a comeback in boxing involving a celebrity boxing match. He cannot mention who he's going to fight, but is that true, Bo?
Absolutely. It's true. And I think the fight is scheduled for, February sometime. I'm going to have a lot of fun, and whoever I'm fighting, it ain't going to be too much fun for them.
Oh my goodness gracious. Wow. And you're preparing yourself already. You're already training for February, aren't you?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Actually, maybe a half an hour ago, we just got finished training for the day.
That's awesome. And I think how excited are you to be getting back in the ring? It's got to be, you feel great.
Well, I'm very excited. I love boxing. I haven't done it in 20 years, so, I can't wait.
Well, no problem. I better get your corner, Neil. You might need a doctor, but anyway, I wanted to ask ask the champ. I wanted to ask Bo. What was your most exciting a match like throughout your career? I mean, you had so many exciting matches, and what was the most exciting match for you?
The first one I would have to say, Evander Holyfield. He was smart in boxing, and he was very courageous. He took chances that you would think a guy his size wouldn't take. So I think also fight when it was fun. You didn't really know what was going to take place with him. But then the fight when who's that? Jorge Luis Gonzalez. He was predictable, so I just exposed him. You know, I hit him with uppercuts, left hooks, right hand. He was just there for a little bit of everything. And plus, I was angry with him, so I'm just glad I didn't hurt him the way he couldn't recover.
Absolutely. Wow. See, Bo, you're not going to be able to do that in the wrestling ring. I can amateur style at 6'10", 300 pounds, and I can also hit you with a choke slam.
I'm not the one you can slow when you can slam, though. How about that?
Yeah, okay. No, I'll hit you the choke slam, maybe the big boot and my leg drop, or maybe I'll have to get the help from the doctor.
And let me ask you a question. You doing all that, what do you think I'm going to be doing?
I don't know. I'll be moving around you. Okay,
I'm
and what
gonna be
age are
running
you?
circles
What
around
age are you, Bo? And what age am I? I'm 48.
We
How
about
old are
the
you?
same age, I'd say. We about the same age,
Yeah.
okay?
Okay, 20 years out, you were out of the boxing ring. 20 years I've been out of the wrestling ring. So that's perfect. I retired 29 years old in Bremen, Germany, and then went on to my entrepreneur career, my talk show host career. It's time to get back in the ring, and the only way is the spotlight needs to be on me, not you, Bo. People will be cheering for me, not you.
Oh, but because they're familiar with wrestling, you probably know better than
I don't know. I
am.
think they'll be cheering you, champ. Who knows? I was just playing on you. You got the millions and millions of fans. You're the champion. I'm just the
in trouble then. I mean, you're going to be in trouble because I'm going to make the fans happy, man.
No, yeah, you make them happy, but I might have a secret. I might have a secret on my hands.
Yeah, I know what the secret
corner.
is. I know what the secret is already. You're going to tap out.
Oh, I'm going to tap out. Oh, no. Okay, so we've announced it here first. We'll have to hear it more coming up. A match between the heavyweight champion of the world, Riddick Bowe, and the two-time heavyweight champion of the world, and the 7-foot giant, Big Neil, the real deal. So it's over. It's over because you're not going to be able to take on a 7-footer and be able to beat.
7-foot giant is about to get dealt with. You about to get dealt with, man.
Okay, we'll see. We heard it first. You just got to check out. You got to check out social media to see it. Go ahead, Dr. Hall. Close up with summarizing the champion, two-time heavyweight champion, Riddick Bowe.
No problem. Wow. So it's just been an exciting session interview here with the champ. You know, he's told us about how he became the champ. He's told us about some custom boxing that are important in life. And so, wow, we're just very, very excited to have Bo, the champ, come by today. Thanks, champ.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
And guess what? We're also know you're working on a book, but maybe you won't be there to have a book released because you'll be in the hospital after I take you out.
Absolutely not. Me and
I tell you. Okay, I'll tell you right now.
Don't get along.
Okay, we'll see. We're gonna see. You really think it? We'll get this contract signed, and we'll have that match. I'll reach out to my promoters in pro wrestling, and we'll make this happen. Because again, I need to have a real spotlight. Yeah. Okay. We will see. Okay, champ. We'll see you. All right. All right. That was all right, guys. That was the Dr. Christopher Hall Show. Take care.